Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Diksha Bisla.
And I'm Kripa, and US President Donald Trump is set for talks with Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Beijing. Trump wants China to open its markets to American companies, increase investment and job creation in US, whereas Xi is expected to seek concessions on Taiwan and tariffs to keep trade flowing, while West Asia war is also likely to feature in the talks.
And also coming up on the show today, loud explosions and air defenses were heard in Kyiv as Ukraine's capital came under heavy aerial attack. And this as Kyiv's mayor said that Russia was striking the city. Earlier, Russia launched a massive drone attack on Ukraine, firing at least 800 drones and killing 6 people. We're going to get you all the details on the show today, but first, a quick check on the headlines.
Security tightened in Beijing ahead of high-stakes talks between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The discussions will focus on key issues including Iran, Taiwan, and trade.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says US is looking for China to take a more active role towards Iran in ending the war. In a news interview with Fox News, urges Beijing to use its influence to persuade Tehran to change its behavior in the region.
Iran's foreign minister Barrage accuses Kuwait of unlawfully attacking an Iranian boat in the Gulf and detaining 4 Iranian citizens. He demands their immediate release and warns that Iran reserves the right to respond.
United Arab Emirates denies reports that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu secretly visited the country after Netanyahu's office said that he had met with UAE President during the war with Iran. Well, these are the live visuals that we're getting from Beijing, where US President Donald Trump is on a 2-day high-stakes visit where he's set to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. And they are expected to discuss a range of thorny issues, including Tehran, Taiwan, and also trade. Well, of course, beyond the optics and ceremony, this meeting carries enormous geopolitical weight because nearly every major global fault line somehow runs through Washington and Beijing right now. And as we say this, it is important to acknowledge that this is not the America-China relationship of 2017. The balance of confidence has shifted tremendously. As you can see on your screens, these are the latest visuals we're getting. And we can see President Donald Trump arriving to meet his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping.
The visuals on your screen right now, first official visit of Trump in his second term to China, and Donald Trump is being welcomed at an official arrival ceremony alongside Xi Jinping at the Great Hall of the People. This marks Trump's first engagement, as I previously mentioned, during his 2-day visit to China. Located west of Tiananmen Square, the Great Hall of the People is a key state building used for legislative activities and for hosting foreign dignitaries. The two leaders are expected to hold high-level talks at the venue later in the day, followed by a state banquet.
As you can see on your screens, these were the latest visuals that we're getting from Beijing, where Donald Trump is being welcomed at an official arrival ceremony alongside Xi Jinping at the Great Hall of the People. And this marks Trump's first engagement during his 2-day visit to China. Great Hall of the People is a key state building which is used for legislative activities and hosting foreign dignitaries. After this, the two leaders are expected to hold high-level talks at the venue later in the day, followed by a state banquet. Well, we can say that Donald Trump is accompanied by his delegation, which, along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, we also see several CEOs and tech startups. We have Elon Musk, and another important presence is, of course, of NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. Well, the context surrounding this summit definitely feels far heavier than Trump's last visit to Beijing. Now, from the war in West Asia to tensions in the Taiwan Strait and the race for dominance, all eyes are on this high-stakes, high-risk meeting between President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, which is taking place in Beijing. Now, this was, of course, the arrival ceremony alongside Xi Jinping at the Great Hall of the People. And this marks Trump's first engagement during his two-day visit to China.
Right. Trump is also pushing for Diksha, as we've discussed before. Trump is pushing for China to open up its markets to American businesses, boost investment and job creation in the U.S., and even increase purchases of U.S. farm products like beef and soybeans. And meanwhile, if we look from the Chinese perspective, Xi is expected to press for relief on issues such as tariffs and Taiwan.
And of course, China has rolled out the full ceremonial playbook for Donald Trump. And to discuss more, we're now being joined by our correspondent, Susan Teherani, who is joining us live from New York. Susan, now, this is classic Chinese statecraft, warmth and pageantry in public, even as very difficult conversations await behind closed doors. What can we expect from today's summit? What's the mood like on the ground in Washington? Tell us more.
So really, we're just seeing full pageantry really happening in Beijing as we speak together here from India and the United States. The world is really watching this summit very closely. Of course, very high stakes for both countries, but also for the world as well. It happens with the fog of war over this summit between Xi Jinping and President Trump. With Iran, with the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, a lot at stake for China regarding that blockade. Not only does its export economy rely on the Strait of Hormuz, but also, getting almost 90% of Iranian oil into the country is very noteworthy as well. So, it's not only oil, it's a lot of other aspects in the Strait of Hormuz that President Trump hopes to talk to Xi Jinping about, and possibly for China to play a more effective mediating role in opening the Strait of Hormuz. Now, President Trump says that he's not going to seek any help when it comes to the war in Iran, but it's very important that they do talk about, the waterways, the international waterway, and shipping, the freedom of navigation as well. So that's going to be, of course, on top of the agenda. The issue of Taiwan for China is going to be very important. Taiwan is watching this meeting very closely because it's concerned that ultimately whether or not President Trump is going to give away anything regarding Taiwan in exchange for something happening with the Strait of Hormuz and Iran as well. But President Trump, when he was leaving Washington and going into this meeting, he said trade is on his mind. It is the most important aspect for him. And that really, seeing the tech CEOs joining him on this trip is a testament to how important that is for him. Right now, China has a surplus of import into the United States, flooding American markets. American car makers are suffering. There's been job losses. There really isn't that much of a competition. It's just one way. President Trump hopes that with bringing these tech CEOs, that's going to change and it's going to be a different environment, and perhaps China can open its domestic markets to more American firms. Our colleagues who are on the ground over there say that they see many McDonald's and Starbucks and Apple, of course, these big American companies, but for the average American investor, they still don't trust that they can really do business in China, and that's very important. Ultimately, President Trump wants China to buy more American goods, including agriculture, energy, and possibly we'll hear some announcements regarding Boeing aircrafts. China, on the other hand, wants relief from U.S. restrictions on semiconductors. But China holds the cards when it comes to certain rare earth minerals. That's going to be discussed, of course, between the two sides as well. But I think it's very important that prior to this meeting, Scott Bessent went to China and sort of laid the groundworks for these trade talks between the two sides. So if there's going to be any quote unquote deliverables, it might be regarding trade, and then behind closed doors regarding Taiwan and the Strait of Hormuz.
Susan, you did mention trade, which is one of the most significant agendas that both the countries are looking to cover. And we know this comes after imposing what many analysts described as a de facto trade embargo on China in early 2025. Donald Trump now arrives in Beijing, speaking of cooperation, investment, and a possible G2 dynamic with Xi Jinping. What do you think explains this diplomatic pivot?
Well, I think just the environment that really we've seen change. This is, as you mentioned, it's not the same China that President Trump visited back in 2017 with the rise of AI and with China really playing such a vital role, not only in a lot of aspects like rare earth minerals, but also it has the world's largest Navy fleet. It's ahead of the United States when it comes to robotics and batteries. Its economy is suffering, but I think just to answer your question, this might be an interesting nugget here. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, right before President Trump left, for Beijing put a new assessment on China's industrial strategy. It argues that the quote unquote window for effective policy response to China's state-led economic model is narrowing. So this timing is very important just to show where the United States and China stand right now and how the United States views China. This is from the US's largest business lobbying group. This is a pointed reminder really to President Trump and the world that the case for managed separation has now only grown stronger. So on the one hand, they do want to have a managed separation, but on the other hand, it seems that the fate of these two countries are intertwined one way or the other.
Right, of course, Susan, it would be interesting to, track how things develop from here on. But for now, thank you so much for getting us those details. That was our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, joining us from New York.
Sorry, sir, you cannot film now. You cannot film now after the two presidents comes has done.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Right, and the visuals that you see on your screen are the latest we're getting from Beijing, from the Great Hall of the People, where we can see Secretary of State Marco Rubio along with Pete Hegseth, and this, of course, follow the pageantry that we just saw. And we understand that optics here are significant because China understands perhaps better than anyone that Donald Trump places enormous value on symbolism, grandeur, and also a certain degree of personal rapport. And this was classic Chinese statecraft, warmth and pageantry in public. And even as very difficult conversations are now about to begin, where the focus would, of course, be on Taiwan, the condition in West Asia, and, of course, trade and AI will also feature prominently, Kripa.
Yes, indeed. Donald Trump now, what we saw before was a grand and carefully choreographed welcome ceremony. He arrived to that. It was also accompanied with 21-gun salute for the U.S. president from Chinese President Xi Jinping, setting the stage for what could be one of the most important meetings between the two leaders in years. We know that weeks ago, Trump even joked that he expected Xi to greet him with a big fat hug when he landed in China, while the greeting at the Great Hall of the People was more formal, as we can see, than it was personal. The scale of the welcome, it did make it clear that Beijing wanted to roll out the red carpet.
Absolutely, Kripa. And now what comes after this ceremony is where the substance actually begins. The bilateral talks expected to focus on trade tensions, technology restrictions. Taiwan is also likely to feature prominently in it. And of course, AI competition and the broader question of whether Washington and Beijing can prevent rivalry from tripping into confrontation. Of course, that would be something that all eyes would be glued to. And the atmospherics, they look cordial, but beneath the slides, of course, there is deep tension as to how the, bilateral is going to pan out, with analysts watching very carefully whether this warmth in optics translates into real warmth in tone once the talks begin as well.
As you rightly mentioned, Diksha, the atmosphere reflected the high stakes of the summit. Trump has indeed brought several powerful American business leaders along with him, alongside the government officials. He hopes to secure better access for U.S. companies to China's huge consumer market and even attract more Chinese investment into the United States. Now, China, meanwhile, is focused on stabilizing relations with Washington, especially on tariffs. Beijing knows that Trump is unlikely to completely remove trade duties, but it does want to avoid the unpredictable tariff swings that have strained relations between the two countries in recent years.
世界走到新的十字路口，中美两国能不能跨越所谓的修昔底德陷阱，开创大国关系的新范式？能不能携手 应对全球挑战，为世界注入更多的稳定性。能不能着眼两国人民的福祉和人类前途命运，共同开创两国关系的美好未来？这些可以说是历史之问、世界之问、人民之问，也是我同您作为大国领导人需要共同书写